Today in the crypto space, we see the market getting a bit of whiplash, Bitcoin coming down and getting right back up to where it started. Bitcoin at about 42,000, Ethereum right around that $3,500 mark, and the rest of the crypto space pretty much waiting for Bitcoin and Ethereum to find its bottom. In today's video, I want to talk about the general market and I want to talk about Bitcoin. I want to use it as an indicator for the future potential of this recovery and or if we're going to come down to those lower levels. So you know what? Let's talk about the news. Let's analyze the charts and let's strategize to capitalize. Welcome to the channel. My name is Mike and let's get right into it, guys. If you're new to the channel, welcome. On the channel we talk about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, all the altcoins, looking for opportunities, whether we go up or down, bearish or bullish, it doesn't matter. All we want to do is stay one step ahead of the market so we can capitalize on any of the volatility. And if you appreciate the strategy, subscribe to the channel, click that bell so you don't miss out on any of my future videos, including the live streams at 7:30 Eastern where we talk about crypto news and price action. Guys, if you have any projects you want me to cover here on the channel, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. You can hit me up on the socials. The links are in the description. And of course, guys, join that Discord. The Discord is where it's at. Lots of good alpha, trade setups, fundamentals, and learning material. All right, guys, let's take a look at this market. Let's take a look at the top 100 first, and then we'll focus on Bitcoin. Guys, I know there's a lot of emotion in the last little while. Bitcoin falling, Bitcoin pumping and recovering, and so on and so forth. Ethereum doing the same thing. And both of these heavyweights right now are basically dictating what is going to be happening in the up and coming hours, maybe even days as we lead into the weekend. There could be a lot of volatility, guys. So be very, very careful here because currently we do see Bitcoin testing the bottom of the range. We'll talk about the Bitcoin price in a second, guys, but let's look at this general market. You can see a lot of red, a few dips, a few little recoveries still in the sense, still making those lower lows, guys. Short term, of course, we're talking about lower time frame, lower lows, and ultimately look at these little dips. Do we get another continuation to the downside? You know, at this current moment, it's all about Bitcoin. As you can see, yes, we got a bit of a recovery today after the continuation to the downside, after the dip. But generally speaking here, guys, despite the little relief that we've got in the last couple hours, generally we're still coming down. As you can see that the hang time is real, the dips are still there, Uniswap coming down, Cosmos, and the list goes on, Injective rolling over, Near Protocol, Optimism, and the list goes on and on and on. You can see there's a lot of good fire sales throughout the market, a lot of good dips that can definitely be bought at this level. Now, the question is, are we going to come down further? And I anticipate yes, as long as Bitcoin continues with this path in this trajectory, it could be that we see the market keep on coming down. However, if it doesn't happen and we see Bitcoin hold its bottom at the current level, because at the current moment, Bitcoin is looking for a bottom at the bottom of the range. And of course, that would be a good indication that the sell-off is over. And then we need to see Ethereum get into the driver's seat. Guys, tonight at 7:30, we'll talk about the altcoin season narrative to see if this is actually possible and if it could actually play out based on the Bitcoin dominance. And of course, the Bitcoin dominance is a great metric to gain a bit of confluence and confidence going forward if we should be allocating our capital into altcoins. You know, here on the channel, I've been focusing on altcoins significantly in the last little while, looking for bottom prices, and that's the only way I'm going to be getting in this current market is finding rock bottom prices at good levels of horizontal support and then start DCAing. Look at Say's coming down, guys. Unfortunately, yes, the party may be over here for Say in the short term, a little bit of relief to the downside, a bit of a dip, and then accumulation, and then it will start smashing higher levels very, very soon. So in the short term, it's okay to be a bit bearish if you are bullish on Say. It's absolutely fine. Why? Because the bullish side of you needs to buy the dip. So anticipate corrections. You know, understand that the market works in peaks and valleys, you know, ebb and flows. And at the end of the day, you want to be able to capitalize on all of that. So this is where we're at. Say is coming down a little bit. And we've seen a lot of the other projects like BitTensor rallied up in the last little while, but it's slowly grinding to the downside again. Render as well, not looking the greatest. It could start coming down and breaking lower levels. Yes, it's at $4. Yes, our entry here on the channel has been really, really great. But ultimately, you can't expect it to keep on going in the green forever, right? We got to understand, again, we get those corrections along the way. And we have synthetics coming down a little bit, and the whole market in general it's still coming down despite this little relief that we're getting in the last couple hours. Look at Beam still coming down, maybe looking for a nice level of support. DYDX, the same thing. And as you can see, the market in general is pretty, dippish. And that's the thing here, guys. DCA, look for those opportunities. You can see Pancake Swap, Oasis, Rose coming down, CFX coming down after a nice little grind to the upside. A quick flash dump. Look at that, 13.7% in the last 24 hours. And I would say the majority of it is in the last few hours. So this is the thing here, guys. The market right now is still looking bearish despite this little relief. Guys, that's all I got. Let's move on. Let's take a look at Bitcoin. I know you're here to talk about charts. Let's begin our analysis here, and we're going to focus on Bitcoin today because I feel like there's a lot of emotion lingering. So we'll get into a little bit more detail. And of course, tonight at 7:30 Eastern, we'll introduce Ethereum. We'll look at the Bitcoin dominance. And of course, that is a great time and place for you guys to make any requests for any projects that you're looking at. I'll definitely pull up some charts and come up with a plan so that we are prepared for future volatility. All right, guys, let's look at this in a little detail to see what we can come up with. Now, I just want you to be aware that ultimately the range is pretty defined. We're building a range, and we can see the tops and we can see the bottoms. The red arrow defined my area where I felt that it was time to de-risk, time to say, you know what, Bitcoin is done. And the red arrow pretty much played out perfectly. Yes, of course, no, I didn't catch the wicks here on the daily, but that's impossible, right? Just general area. We timed it pretty good. And then the bottom of the range was quite defined as well. You know, multiple lines, multiple areas, volume gap. As you can see right here, we do have a little volume gap. And we can see that we ultimately got support at the top of the volume gap. My target was about 40.5K, so 40,500. And guess what, guys? We came pretty close to it. Approximately 40,300, more or less, and change. So we can see that we're getting a bit of support here. And we got a reaction. Many lows, many bottoms, many wicks at this level, which suggests that we are getting a bit of support. Now, I just want to be aware of the momentum. Let me clean this up a little bit. I think we can get rid of this at this point, because right now the horizontal is way more important, and we could definitely rearrange this just a little bit to basically accommodate some of the price action that happened in the last little while, because you can see the volume profile is becoming a lot more useful here. You can see that the empty volume gap is definitely here, and if we don't hold support at about 40,000, again 40,600, 40,500, give or take, if you want to include or exclude the wicks. Me personally, I put a lot of emphasis on the volume gaps, right? Even though we wick below it, it's okay as long as we close candles above it. It means that ultimately we're using it as support. Now, what I want to talk about is momentum here for a second here on the daily, because you can see that the bearish divergence is still here. Higher highs on the price action, lower highs on the RSI, and we're in the chop zone, which means on the RSI, we're here on the 50 mark, right? We could hesitate here for a little bit in the next little while, maybe right over the weekend. We can get a bit of a pop to the upside or a continuation to the downside. But ultimately, what I'm saying here, as long as we hang out here on the 50% mark on the RSI, I'm not expecting more volatility, neither to the upside or to the downside. We might go sideways here for the next little while. But big picture, if we do come down and get oversold here, guys, it's not looking good for Bitcoin, and we start coming down to those lower levels, and we might come down very quickly, given the fact that it's going to induce a lot of fear in the market, and obviously altcoins will bleed out. And it's absolutely expected to happen, right? Altcoins are a lot more volatile, but we have to prepare, because ultimately, as soon as Bitcoin finds its bottom and we get proof of a bottom, it's likely to induce a bit of a reaction on the altcoins and maybe an altcoin season, especially if we see Ethereum recover from this dip a lot harder and stronger and the Bitcoin dominance falls. We're going to have to track that. Of course, I'm going to be tracking this Bitcoin dominance and Bitcoin price versus Ethereum in the next little while, because obviously we've been scaling into a lot of altcoins in the last little while, and I want to make sure that we're, protecting our capital, our initial investments, and of course our gains if we're in any. But you can see obviously the bearish divergence is getting its follow through. We already got a confirmation, a high, a lower high, and we're slowly trekking to the downside. So a bit of a pit stop right around this zone. That's what happens. Sometimes we come back up. You never know. We could come back for a bit of relief, but ultimately, until we get oversold, which is down here in the bottom end of the RSI, below the 30% mark here on the RSI, I am a little bit skeptical on this price action. I'm skeptical on the fact that we're going to start making major higher highs here. Okay, so let's go back into the price action. What I'm saying here is we could get a bounce. We could get it get a nice dead cat bounce, or even a slightly lower high and produce a few more shoulders here to produce a complex head and shoulders, multiple shoulders, a nice head, and then a couple more shoulders, and then finally produce a nice neckline where we can see a weak spot and fall right through. So this is something that we're going to have to track for the next little while, because that is an opportunity. You know, it's definitely an opportunity. You can see that below we start to build a bit of support right here. We start to build more support right into this zone. Let me kind of fix this up a little bit so it's a little bit more relevant. Below we do have another volume gap, and then we have other areas of weakness down here at about 33 to about 32, right around this zone. So the question is, when Bitcoin gets oversold, where will the price be? Wherever it is, at any level of horizontal support, that is when I'm going to start DCing. Right now, for me, I don't think this bearish dip is over. It could be, but a probability, statistically speaking here, guys, look at the MACD. The EMAs are facing down, red histogram bars to the downside. You can see this trend, this channel of momentum of the trend is moving to the downside. And for me, this is not a great thing to see Bitcoin in. Now, I do see the divergence is very clear. Price action is still holding up while the divergence still in the momentum and the trend strength is coming down, which is the MACD. So which means that eventually it might kick in, get the bounce, and then start rolling over here and maybe coming down to those lower levels. Okay, in the meantime, this could definitely go sideways for the next little while. So what happens here when Bitcoin goes sideways is that people get bored. You know, it's a very boring thing to see Bitcoin go sideways, no volatility, no real trading action. You know, people get comfortable and then people get annoyed, because why? Traders want their capital to get to work. That's the tool for the job, right? It's like, you know, my capital just sitting here in the stable coin is not actively working for me in my favor. So what traders start looking for is volatility. Right? And altcoins offer that. We know altcoins are a lot more volatile than Bitcoin. They could offer great trading opportunities, especially if we see some good bullish setups. And ultimately, what would be super bullish, again, is if Ethereum gives us confirmations that the overall altcoin market is going to get into the driver's seat, seeing the Bitcoin dominance fall. Bitcoin dominance could fall even though Ethereum and Bitcoin is going sideways and Ethereum is running. That's basically what we want to see. Now, of course, it doesn't have to happen, right? We have to be prepared that the entire market falls if Bitcoin falls from this level. But this is why I am very adamant and very strict on the fact that no matter what, I am always buying bottoms on altcoins. I am not buying tops. And we've seen many of the altcoins in the last little while kind of roll over. And this is why I'm saying this, because if it's already at the bottom, it's likely to get support at its strong level of support at the bottom of the range. And right now you can see Bitcoin doesn't really have much support until it gets to a little bit lower levels. The majority of the support really is at about 30K. And then if it does break below that, we start to get into much more levels of support, which are a lot stronger at about 25K. So for me, I'm looking at about 30 to 31 to start DCing, and then about 25K to start DCing a bit more. And that would be totally fine. I know there's some people saying, you know what, Mike, you're nuts. It's not coming down to 25K. Number one, anticipate that it could happen. Prepare yourself emotionally, prepare yourself economically, because if it happens, what are you going to do about it? Nobody knows what's going to happen. There's no certainties in this market. It's all probability and statistics, and it could definitely happen. And if it happens, are you going to be left blindsided? Are you going to be prepared for that scenario? And I am going to be prepared, because ultimately, I think that this is a decent target, given the fact that it's not a lower low, right? We're just coming down for a confirmation low. This was a low. Now, how do we know it's a low? The only way we know this is a low is if we come down and make a higher low, right? This trend is beautiful. Nice grind to the upside. Beautiful trend. We didn't change a structure or anything here to confirm this bottom. So let's see if we come down, change some structure, make a confirmation low lower than this low, and then start holding support at around 25K. That would be great. And then we start getting a bounce right at this level. I would like to see that. That would get me super bullish. And guess what? At this level, I am not going to be buying Bitcoin, to be honest. I'll be getting very heavy into altcoins. Altcoins is where it's at if you're looking for volatility, if you're looking for life-changing gains, if you're looking to make some really good profits in this bull run. You got to be looking for the volatility. You got to be looking for the lower cap altcoins. Now, of course, micro caps can get a little bit risky. That's why a well-diversified portfolio with large caps, mid caps, low caps, micro caps, all of the different narratives and all of the hot narratives have a variety of everything. And that way you can have all your angles covered just in case we get a bit of volatility here. Bitcoin is one of the assets right now that we need to follow alongside Ethereum. That relationship is super, super important. Let's look at the lower time frames here for a second, and then we'll look at the weekly. We see the 4 hour. The 4 hour is already oversold. Slightly, not in extreme conditions, right? We got to these levels before. We got a bit of a back test. On the 4 hour, I would say yes, a long position arguably is a good thing. We could definitely get a bounce, and a 4 hour could get overbought up to this level, and it could be that overbought but still make a lower high, right? A shoulder, another shoulder, another shoulder. And if that were to be the case, that's going to look bearish, obviously very bearish. It starts to build this complex pattern that we're looking for. Volume is going to increase right here, point of control is going to increase, and then we're going to have a good invalidation for a bullish thesis, which would be below these lows. If we break below the $40,500 level, more or less, with some good volume present, it's very likely that we start hitting those lower levels. So short term, bounce to the upside, fine. That daily is still looking bearish. That's all I gotta say. If you're going long against the daily trend, get in, get out, and get out maybe at about 44,180, more or less. At the top of this is where I would be prepared to take profit and trail up a stop loss and protect your gains, because it could run up, it could keep on going, no doubt, but at this level the probability of getting a rejection increases. So that's why at this point I would start getting implementing a defensive strategy, and a really good one is reduce your position size by 10%, maybe 20, and trail up a stop loss into profit. That way, no matter what happens on your trade, you walk away profitable. Okay, so that's the 4 hour. Really, it's oversold. The bullishness is kind of there. We do see higher highs here, higher lows, higher lows, maybe gets into the bullish control zone here on the 4 hour. So good stuff here. Nice class A bullish divergence, lower lows on the price action here on the 4 hour. You can see that, and then you can see that the momentum is pushing in the opposite direction. So we have a class A bullish divergence on the RSI and on the MACD right now. So I am getting into the into the thesis, or in the consensus, that we could be getting a little bit of support here for a bounce. Let's look on the weekly. Let's go back to the weekly. The weekly is overbought. It's gotten overbought. It got oversold. Now it's overbought. It's very likely that maybe we get another impulsive move to confirm this level. Maybe another little another little pop to the upside and see another double top. But ultimately, guys, look at this MACD. Look at this MACD on the weekly. Right? Is it ready to close these two EMAs, to cross these two EMAs and see a red candle? That, for me, a red bar right here would be super, super bearish. I'm not saying it's going to happen. What I am saying is it could happen. And the likelihood of getting a bit of a reset here on the weekly, just even coming down to the chop zone, holding support, that's when we will buy the dips across the board. And it's likely that we see Bitcoin at about 50% on the RSI. We see it at much lower levels, whether it be 30 or 25. Let's see what happens. Let's take it day by day, but ultimately I'm expecting a bit of a dip here. So the weekly, not so bearish, pretty neutral at the current moment. In fact, it could be argued that we could get we do have some time for a bit of a bounce, but really it's the daily right now. The daily is not looking the greatest. I want to be patient with the daily. Obviously, guys, I'm going to give you updates along the way as I see this unfold, because honestly, it's Bitcoin right now. It's all eyes on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going to lead the way at the end of the day, and if it does go sideways, guys, I am still rooting for those altcoins. Guys, if I've offered you any value in this video, do the channel a massive favor, slap the like button. Of course, I am live tonight at 7:30 Eastern, where we're talking about crypto news and price action. If you have any projects you want me to cover, that is a great time and place to make those requests. I'll pull up some charts, we'll come up with a plan, we'll try to stay one step ahead of the market, because that's exactly how you capitalize on any of the volatility. If you want to follow me on the socials, the links are in the description below. Of course, guys, join the Discord. The Discord is where it's at. Lots of good alpha, trade setups, fundamentals, and learning material. Take care, guys. Have a good one, and don't forget, buy the dip.